The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched higher than any building on Earth, its crystal walls gleaming with colors humans had no names for. Ambassador James Walker stood at the center, his black diplomatic suit feeling plain and outdated compared to the flowing, shimmering robes of the alien representatives around him. "And so," Walker said, his voice steady despite the mocking whispers he could hear, "humanity has achieved faster than light travel within just 3 centuries of discovering electricity." He gestured to the holographic display showing Earth's achievements, trying to ignore the barely hidden smirks on alien faces. From their elevated platforms, the high ones looked down at him. They were tall, graceful creatures with silvery skin that seemed to ripple like water. The eldest among them, speaker first, let out a sound that might have been a laugh. 3 centuries. Speaker first's voice echoed through the chamber. "My species mastered faster than light travel before your kind learned to make fire." More laughter filled the room, no longer hidden. Walker kept his face neutral, but his hands tightened behind his back. He noticed something interesting. The younger species in the chamber laughed the loudest, as if eager to prove they belonged with their ancient masters. "Perhaps," Walker said, "but we achieved it independently, without outside help." The laughter stopped. Speaker first's silver skin rippled with what might have been anger. "Are you suggesting," another council member called out, "that receiving guidance from more advanced civilizations is somehow wrong?" Such pride from a species that still burns fossil fuels on some of their colonies. Walker watched as various representatives nodded in agreement. But he also noticed something else, the way some of them kept glancing at the high ones, as if seeking approval. Every piece of technology in the chamber, from the translation devices to the gravity controls, bore the mark of the high one's engineering. "We have come to offer friendship and exchange knowledge," Walker continued, though he already knew this mission was failing. "Earth has unique approaches to problems that might." "Unique?" A bug-like creature chittered from one of the lower platforms. "Your medical technology still relies on cutting people open. We've had molecular reconstruction for 10,000 years. More laughter. Walker noticed a pattern now. Every species bragged about their technology, but all of it seemed to flow from the same source, the high ones. Different designs, different applications, but the same fundamental principles. "Thank you for your time," Walker said, bowing slightly. "Earth looks forward to future discussions." It was a lie, but a diplomatic one. As he turned to leave, Speaker First's voice rang out one final time. "Do not feel too discouraged, young ones. In a few thousand years, you might be advanced enough to properly join galactic civilization. Until then, we will watch your fumbling attempts at progress with, what do you humans call it? Ah yes, amusement." Walker walked out of the chamber with his head held high, already composing his report to Earth in his mind. But he wasn't thinking about the insults or the mockery. He was thinking about how every species in that room used the High One's technology. How none of them had mentioned making their own breakthroughs. How they all looked to their masters for approval. In the shuttle back to his ship, Walker pulled out his tablet and began writing. "To the United Earth Government Security Council. Primary observation. The Galactic Council's technological advancement masks a critical weakness. They have become a culture of users rather than innovators. Recommendation. This may be the most important opportunity humanity has ever encountered, but not in the way we expected." The stars streaked past his window as the shuttle accelerated. Somewhere out there, Earth waited for news of their first diplomatic contact with galactic civilization. They were expecting either a triumphant success or a crushing failure. Walker smiled slightly. What he was bringing back was something else entirely, an opportunity disguised as an insult. The Council had shown him their greatest weakness. Now humanity just had to decide how to use that knowledge. The United Earth Government's emergency session hall buzzed with angry voices. On the massive screen behind the speaker's podium, recordings from the Galactic Council meeting played on loop, showing the aliens laughing at humanity's achievements. "This is an outrage." Admiral Peters slammed his fist on the table. "They treat us like children playing with toys. His face was red with anger as he watched another replay of Speaker First's mocking comments. Director Maria Torres stood quietly at the podium, waiting for the initial burst of anger to pass. Her gray suit and calm expression stood in sharp contrast to the emotional outbursts around her. Behind her, Ambassador Walker sat silently, his face showing no reaction to the replay of his humiliation. When the noise finally died down, Torres spoke. "What if I told you this meeting was the best thing that could have happened to humanity?" The room fell silent. Even Admiral Peters stopped mid-shout to stare at her. Ambassador Walker's full report reveals something fascinating. Torres continued, bringing up a new display. Every advanced technology in the council chamber came from a single source: the high ones. The younger species haven't innovated. They've only copied. Walker stood up to join her. They're like rich kids who inherited their parents' fortune, but never learned to make money themselves, he said, using a comparison everyone could understand. Torres nodded. "So I propose something unprecedented. Total withdrawal from galactic affairs." The room exploded with questions. Torres raised her hand for silence. "No trade, no cultural exchange, no diplomatic contact," she explained. "We cut ourselves off completely. Let them think we're sulking if they want. But in reality," she smiled, "we'll be building." "Building what?" someone asked. "Everything," Walker answered. "But this time, we do it our way. No copying their designs, no following their rules. Pure human innovation." Admiral Peters frowned. "Won't isolation make us weaker?" "Actually," Torres said, pulling up another display, "our best innovations came when we worked alone. The space race, the computer revolution, the fusion breakthrough. Every time we competed against ourselves, we grew faster than when we copied others." The room grew quiet as people considered this. Walker stepped forward. "In that council chamber, they laughed at us," he said. "But they also showed us their weakness. They depend on the high ones for everything. They've forgotten how to solve problems on their own." Torres took over again. "We'll keep basic communication open to avoid looking hostile. But otherwise, we go dark. No sharing our breakthroughs. No asking for help. We build our own future." "And if they threaten us?" Admiral Peters asked, but his tone was curious now, not angry. "They won't," Walker answered. "They think we're primitive, harmless. Let them keep thinking that. Pride is their weakness. They'll never believe we could surpass them on our own." The vote that followed was nearly unanimous. Within a week, Earth began withdrawing its representatives from galactic space. Trade ships returned home. Colonial outposts went quiet, protected by new stealth systems. In the council chambers, the aliens laughed again when they heard the news. "The primitives are hiding in shame," they said. As expected. But in secret labs and hidden shipyards across Earth and her colonies, humanity was already starting its greatest project yet. Teams of scientists and engineers, freed from the need to follow galactic standards, began exploring new ideas that the Council had dismissed as impossible. As she watched the last diplomatic ship return to Earth, Torres smiled. The aliens had given humanity a gift without realizing it. The gift of being underestimated. And in 5 years, when they revealed what they had built in silence, that gift would become the Council's greatest mistake. 5 years passed like a shooting star. Deep within the Armstrong Research Center on the dark side of the moon, Dr. Anna Morris watched her life's work come together. The massive ring-shaped device in front of her hummed with power, its inner circle filled with swirling blue energy. "Test number 2047, she said into her recorder. "Modified quantum field is stable. No council tech, no alien theories, just good old human stubbornness." Behind her, Director Torres and Ambassador Walker stood watching. They had aged these past 5 years. More gray hair, more wrinkles. But their eyes were bright with excitement. "Will it work this time?" Torres asked, though she'd seen the previous 2046 failures. Morris smiled. Watch. She pressed a button, and a small probe floated into the ring's center. The blue energy swirled faster, wrapping around the probe like water down a drain. Then, with a flash that lit up the massive underground chamber, the probe vanished. Location: Morris Astro Team. Probe signal detected near Jupiter, a technician answered. Transit time: 0.3 seconds. Walker's jaw dropped. That's impossible. Even the High One's best ships take hours to reach Jupiter. Impossible is what we do now, Morris said, bringing up the data screens. The Council thinks space is like a road. You have to travel every mile to get somewhere. But we found a shortcut. Space isn't flat. It's more like a piece of paper. If you want to get from one edge to another, you can walk across. She picked up a paper and drew 2 dots on opposite ends. Or you can fold it. She folded the paper so the dots touched. Torrid stared at the ring. And this does that with space itself. The Morris Drive, Walker said, nodding at the inventor. A human solution to a human problem. But this wasn't their only breakthrough. In other hidden bases around the solar system, humanity had been busy. The old Space Force stations now housed quantum computers more powerful than anything the Council had shown. Medical labs had cracked the code of cellular regeneration, healing injuries that even alien medicine couldn't fix. Every breakthrough came from human minds asking human questions. While the Council followed the High One's ancient rulebook, Earth's scientists asked why not, instead of how do they do it. In a lab under the Pacific Ocean, researchers had learned to control gravity itself. Not with the clumsy gravity plates the Council used, but with elegant fields that could bend and shape at will. Their test pilots now flew ships that could dance through space like dolphins in water. On Mars, the new antimatter plant powered an entire colony using a reactor smaller than a car. The Council's fusion plants looked like ancient steam engines in comparison. But they kept everything hidden. When Council observation ships passed through the solar system, they saw only what humanity wanted them to see. Quiet colonies, basic ships, nothing that would raise alarms. How long can we keep this secret? Walker asked, watching the probe materialize back in the test chamber. Not much longer, Torres admitted. The Morris Drive's energy signature is too distinct. Someone will notice eventually. Good, Morris said, surprising them both. I'm tired of hiding. The Council thinks we went quiet because we were ashamed. I want to see their faces when they learn what silence really means. As if to emphasize her words, another probe entered the ring. This time, the coordinates were set for the edge of the solar system. The flash lit up the chamber again, and in less than a second, humanity proved that everything the Council thought they knew about physics was wrong. In his hidden office on the Council station, Thomas Reed, Earth's deep cover agent, smiled as he wrote his latest report. They still don't suspect. They think humanity is sleeping. They don't realize we're about to wake up. The Trademaster of the Galactic Council frowned at his screens. Another human ship had vanished from the regular routes. That made 50 in the past month alone. No crashes, no distress signals. They simply stopped coming. Most peculiar, Thomas Reed said, watching from his position as a Council observer. His silver-gray uniform matched the Council's standardized style, hiding the fact that he was Earth's deepest cover agent. Perhaps they'd given up on space travel entirely. The Trademaster, a tall being with crystal-like skin, made a sound of disgust. Primitive species, they can't handle the complexities of galactic commerce. He waved his hand, dismissing the matter. Let them hide in their little system. But Reed noticed something the Trademaster missed. The alien merchants who used to trade with Earth were struggling. Humans might have been primitive, but they had been excellent trading partners. They worked hard, paid fair prices, and often found creative solutions to shipping problems. In the Council's great market halls, prices for certain goods had doubled, then tripled. Earth's colonies had provided rare minerals and unique agricultural products that other worlds now couldn't replace. Another human colony gone dark. A junior observer reported one day. Total communication blackout except for automated warnings to stay away. The high ones try to laugh it off in their public speeches. The young ones need time to accept their place. Speaker first announced. Let them sulk. But in private meetings, which Reed carefully observed, their tone was different. How are they maintaining their colonies without our technical support? One high one asked. Their ships should be falling apart by now. Their systems should be failing. Perhaps, another suggested, we should send an inspection fleet. For their own safety, of course. Reed wrote his reports in secret, using quantum-encrypted channels that the Council's best sensors couldn't detect. They're getting nervous, he told Earth. The facade of superiority is cracking. Strange reports began to circulate. A human mining colony near Jupiter's moons had somehow increased its output by 300%, but no one could detect how they were doing it. Their ships looked the same on the outside, but some claimed they moved, oddly, as if they weren't quite following the normal rules of space travel. In the council chambers, the younger species began whispering. They had joined the mockery of humanity 5 years ago, eager to prove they belonged with their betters. Now they wondered if they had made a mistake. My world's economy is down 30% without human trade, one representative quietly told another. We never realized how much we relied on them. I heard, another whispered, that they've developed new medical techniques, not using any council-approved methods. My cousin says they cured something our doctors couldn't even diagnose. The high ones tried to silence these whispers. They increased their gifts of technology, reminded everyone of humanity's primitive nature, and insisted that isolation would only hurt Earth. But Reed noticed how the high ones' silver skin rippled with worry when they thought no one was watching. They had expected humanity to come crawling back, begging for help and acceptance. The silence was worse than any defiance. In his hidden chamber, Reed recorded his final report of the day. They're beginning to realize their mistake. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought isolation meant defeat. They never considered that we might grow stronger without them. The Council's greatest fear isn't that humanity failed. Their greatest fear is that we succeeded, without their help, without their guidance, without their control. And soon, very soon, they're going to discover just how right those fears are. The emergency alarms in the Council's medical center hadn't stopped ringing for 3 days straight. Dr. Reed walked through the crowded halls, watching as more patients arrived from 3 different worlds. Their symptoms were the same: blue-tinted skin, difficulty breathing, and rapidly failing organs. The standard protocols aren't working, a Council medical chief said, his crystalline hands shaking as he reviewed the latest deaths. Nothing in the High One's medical database matches this plague. Reed took careful notes, appearing to be just another concerned Council observer. But his real report, sent through quantum channels to Earth, told a different story. It's exactly what we predicted. Their medical science can't handle new problems. They only know how to follow the High One's ancient treatments. In her lab on Europa, Dr. Lisa Baker read Reed's report with growing interest. Behind her, rows of automated systems were already producing the cure. Human medical science had taken a different path during their isolation. Instead of following present treatments, they had learned to adapt and evolve their solutions. How many dead so far? Director Torres asked during the emergency meeting. Over 10,000 on 3 major worlds, Baker answered. Their quarantine systems are failing. They never developed new containment protocols because they never needed to. The High One's old methods always worked before. Ambassador Walker, now showing more gray than black in his hair, leaned forward. And we have the cure. Baker nodded. We developed it 2 weeks ago. As soon as we detected the first cases, our new adaptive medical systems can handle mutations that their static treatments can't touch. And they've asked for help. Torres looked at the latest diplomatic messages. 3 times now, Walker confirmed. Each message more desperate than the last. The High Ones tried to sound commanding in their first message. By the third, they were almost begging. In the council chambers, the crisis was tearing apart centuries of carefully maintained order. Younger species were openly questioning the High One's leadership for the first time. "How can you not have a solution?" one representative shouted, his world one of the three affected. "You claim to have mastered all medical science." Speaker First's silver skin had lost its shine. "Our methods require time to adapt." Time. Another voice cut in. "My people are dying now. We should ask the humans." Silence. Speaker First's voice boomed through the chamber. "We will not lower ourselves to beg help from primitives who still use surgical tools." But in private council sessions, which Reed carefully recorded, the High Ones were panicking. "Send another message to Earth," one insisted. "Offer them anything." "We've tried," another responded. "Their automated systems just repeat the same message. Earth appreciates your communication, but is currently focused on internal development." In her lab, Baker watched the latest batch of cure being produced. Enough for all three infected worlds, with more ready if the plague spread further. "Should we help them?" she asked Torres. Torres studied the reports of death and suffering. "Of course we'll help them," she said firmly. "We're not monsters. But first, let them learn what their mockery of primitive human medicine has cost them." "How long?" Walker asked. Torres checked the latest council message, this one nearly begging for aid. "Another week. Let them realize that their perfect system has failed. Let them understand that innovation beats stagnation. Then we'll show them what humanity has become." Reed's final report of the day was brief. "They're ready. The Council's medical crisis has broken their confidence. When Earth reveals its cure, everything will change. The High One's greatest fear is coming true. Humanity hasn't just caught up to them. In many ways, we've already moved far beyond them." The star was dying. Everyone knew it would happen eventually, but no one expected it today. The human colony on New Hope watched in horror as their sun began to collapse, its outer layers pulsing with deadly radiation. "Evacuation impossible," the colony's governor reported. "Nearest council ships are 2 days away. We have less than 6 hours." In the council chambers, the gathered species watched the disaster unfold on their screens. Even with their best ships, they couldn't reach the colony in time. The High Ones stood silent, their silver skin dull with the knowledge that thousands would die. Then something impossible happened. A ship appeared near the colony, not through normal space travel, but through a flash of blue light that made the Council's sensors scream in confusion. It was huge, bigger than anything humanity had ever shown before, and it didn't move like any ship they'd ever seen. "What is that?" Speaker First demanded, watching as more ships appeared through similar flashes. Thomas Reed, standing at his observer post, allowed himself a small smile. The Morris Drive was about to make its public debut. On the colony world, people stared in awe as the massive ships took position around their dying sun. Energy fields, far more precise than anything the Council used, stretched between the vessels. They weren't just evacuating the colony. They were going to save the entire system. "Impossible," a Council scientist muttered, watching the readings. "They're containing a supernova. No one can contain a supernova. Even the High Ones never." But they were. The human ships, using gravity control far beyond Council technology, created a web of force fields that caught the star's explosion like a net catching a ball. In 6 hours of incredible precision work, they guided the star's death, protecting their colony and turning a disaster into a controlled fusion reaction. When it was done, the colony was safe. Their sun was stable again, though slightly smaller, and humanity's secret was out. How? Speaker First's voice shook as he addressed the council chamber. How did they achieve this level of technology? They were primitive. We saw their ships, their colonies, their tools. You saw what we wanted you to see, Reed said, finally stepping forward. He removed his council observer badge, revealing the Earth insignia beneath it. While you laughed at our primitive ways, we were building, growing, solving problems you never even thought to address. The chamber erupted in chaos. The High Ones demanded explanations. Younger species were either terrified or amazed. And through it all, the screens showed the human ships, their hulls gleaming with technology that broke every rule the Council thought they knew about physics. The Morris Drive, Reed explained to the stunned audience. Instant travel anywhere in the galaxy. No need for your slow ships. Gravity control that can save a dying star. Medical science that can cure your plague in days, not years. And that's just the beginning. You must share this technology. Speaker first declared, for the good of all species, like you shared yours. Reed asked quietly, by making everyone dependent on you, by mocking those who tried to find their own way. The silence in the chamber was deafening. The High One's perfect image of superiority had cracked completely. Other species were looking at humanity's ships with new eyes, not with fear, but with hope. Here was proof that there were other ways to advance, other paths to the stars. Earth will share, Reed said, but not under the old rules, not under your control. The galaxy is about to change, and this time, humanity won't be sitting quietly in the corner. 7 years after humanity's first humiliation in the council chamber, Ambassador James Walker stood once again at its center. This time, no one laughed. The chamber was packed. Every species had sent representatives to this historic session. Even the furthest colonies had joined through hologram displays. Walker looked older, his hair now completely gray, but his eyes held a quiet confidence that made even the High Ones uncomfortable. Behind him stood Director Torres and Dr. Morris, the creator of the drive that had changed everything. 7 years ago, Walker began, his voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber. I stood here and was told that humanity needed thousands of years to catch up, that we were primitive, amusing, a species of barely evolved apes. Speaker First's silver skin rippled with discomfort. The memory of those mocking words hung heavy in the air. Today, Walker continued, we've shown you a different path. Our ships crossed the galaxy in moments. Our medical science cured your plague. Our gravity technology saved a dying star. He paused. And we did it all without following your rulebook. What do you want? Speaker First asked, trying to maintain dignity despite their weakened position. Change. Torres stepped forward. The old system is broken. Your technology hasn't truly advanced in centuries. You've only refined what you already had. Meanwhile, younger species are kept dependent, never learning to innovate for themselves. The chamber buzzed with whispers. Many of the younger species were nodding, remembering how they had struggled during humanity's withdrawal. Here are our terms, Walker said, activating a holographic display. First, the Council will be reorganized. No more central control of technology. No more forcing everyone to follow one path of development. Impossible. One of the High Ones protested. Our guidance maintains order. Your guidance maintains stagnation, Dr. Morris interrupted. Look at what humanity achieved in just 7 years of thinking for ourselves. Imagine what the galaxy could achieve if everyone was free to innovate. Second, Torres continued, Earth will share its advancements. The Morris Drive. Our medical breakthroughs. Everything. But we'll teach you how we made them, not just give you finished products. The younger species were openly supportive now. They had seen what independence had done for humanity. Many had suffered from the Council's rigid control of technology, unable to solve their own unique problems because they had to follow the High One's ancient methods. And if we refuse? Speaker First asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Walker smiled. Then humanity will continue on its own path. Those who wish to learn from us directly may do so. The age of centralized control is over, one way or another. The vote that followed was unlike anything the Council had seen in its long history. Species after species chose independence and innovation over the old system of dependence. The High Ones watched their power crumble as their former subordinates chose a new path. Remember this day, Walker said as the final votes were counted. Not as the day humanity won, But as the day the galaxy chose to grow, to innovate, to find new ways forward. As he left the chamber, Walker passed the spot where he had stood 7 years ago, enduring mockery and scorn. Now, representatives from 100 worlds sought his attention, eager to learn humanity's secret. What was the secret? A young alien asked him. Walker smiled. We believed in ourselves. Sometimes, being underestimated is the greatest advantage of all. The council taught us an important lesson when they mocked us. Never let anyone else define your limits. Above the chamber, human ships flickered in and out of existence, their Morris drives defying the old laws of physics. They were the symbol of a new age, one where innovation and independence would replace stagnation and control. The galaxy would never be the same, and it all started because some ancient species made the mistake of mocking a young race that refused to stay primitive.